Hi, everyone. My name is Suchkova, and I'm very excited to be here with you today for the next 30 minutes or so, where we'll talk a little bit more about our PM careers. So before I jump in, let me introduce myself. Having started my product career more than 10 years ago, I feel like I've tried a little bit of everything. Very early stage startups, Series A, enterprise, B2B and B2C, as well as started my own company at some point. The spectrum of product experience really expanded my periphery of product vision and impact, and really taught me to never settle in one corner and always question my own opinions as well as opinions of others. And it really equipped me with experience necessary for me to be where I am today. So currently I'm a group product manager at 15.5, where I made my own transition to a people and product leader about a year ago. In my free time, I'm also coaching product managers and designers at Hire Club. Because 1/3 of our lives will be spent at work, any significant changes in our career can be considered life transitions. Like with many life transitions, they require clarity of goals, some courage, and hopefully preparation and strategic thinking. So today I'm going to explore moving from individual contributor to a people and product leader, which is one of the most exciting yet obscure transitions for those of us who purposefully wish to not stay on the IC track. I'll use the analogy of a hero's journey to kick us off with the importance of really listening to your calling and really reflecting on that. And starting with an end in mind so that you really plan your career, no matter where you are today. Either you are associate product manager or really seasoned senior product manager. We're gonna review and overview product manager career tracks, some of the traps we tend to fall into. I'll talk about differences between IC and people manager and share some tips and tools to really help you navigate your own career and especially transition, and to prepare you for the move if that's really your calling. And this is not where your own hero journey would stop, as you can see from the visual. But we're gonna break at that point because other phases are really just the topics on their own, including the facing the tests and transformation, going back into your reality fully equipped with new skills and being a seasoned product leader. As I was researching for this talk, I found an excellent article by Farid Massavat and Casey Winters, former product leaders at Slack and even Tribe respectively, who I think articulated really well a transition from a PM to a product leader. And I will use their analogy of crossing the canyon because honestly, this has been the exact experience of mine. So as you can see, all of us, we started our own base camps. There is no one way of getting to product management. However, no matter where we start, most of us literally tend to camp out somewhere here or somewhere here for many years, still dreaming about VP or CPO roles. My experience has been such that to get from my PM base camp to people product leader, I thought I just needed to do more and do better. And looking at this visual, it feels like all you just have to do is to keep hiking, and at some point you put a flag at the people and product leader, and then one day you get it all the way up here to being a VP, chief product officer, or even perhaps founder of a startup. However, this path really becomes ambiguous when you start actually walking it. And this is what Farid and Casey really describe as a canyon, by bridging which you hopefully move into a leadership. And as I mentioned, this path is ambiguous. As you start walking further, there are really no markers, and you're on your own. What looked like a peak just a little bit further up really becomes a forest full of trails that you don't even see the markers for. And crossing the canyon, you might bridge it, or we might all fall into that. And that's why that analogy, I think, really speaks to me, because what got me to being a senior product manager, what is getting all of you to senior product manager, it will not get us to being a product and people leader. We might end up staying sometimes at the top, never even moving further, never even crossing the canyon, because we just can't figure it out even how. So the real question is, how do you get to the other side? So when you're at this base camp, you're looking up, you see the valley, you see the canyon. How do I get to that product leader role finally? So let's start with really defining the end in mind, our ultimate goal, and really start working backwards. The thing is, if you keep going the way you are today, wherever you are today, your ladder might not be leaning against the right wall. And when I say the right wall, it's really might not be leaning against the people leadership or people management track in product management. So in my experience, most of our life transitions, we plan really carefully, be it at a move to another country or parenthood, changing apartments. But when it comes to career, for some reason, we leave it up to someone else. Maybe destiny, maybe a manager to decide for us when the time is right. Looking at the standard PM career, there are clearly two tracks. We might not be aware of them, assuming that if I keep doing what I have, but better, if I can keep taking on more, I finally get to the VP role. I finally will be here. But in reality, though, many of us just get stuck right over here in that senior PM position for many years. Even looking at different PM levels, it is still not clear that in order to get to the top, you really need to choose where you want to go, because if you don't, you will get stuck. This is a great visual that shows how different descriptions, how different levels correspond in different companies. So when it comes to planning your career and transition, here are a couple of things to really understand. So almost all of us aspire to be here, right? We want to get to group product managers and start moving up, director, VP, chief product officer. Well, as I mentioned, here comes the time where you really need to make the choice. And you really need to choose that time, assuming that you're being cognizant of the experience and ownership scope as a product manager, as wherever you are today at your level. And you need to start looking proactively and seek out that transition. Perhaps you develop enough depth in one problem area and ready to start looking at the problems landscape more holistically across the teams and products. And the great thing about real selection and making real choice is once you proactively seek out, once you proactively decide, talk to your manager, even if at some point you don't really like being a people manager, a people leader, and a product leader, you can always come back to the individual contributor track. There is nothing that prevents you from being effective and efficient staff product manager or principal product manager. You can have depth and you can have breadth in the same time. But before you start having those conversations with your manager and setting goals on how to actually get to that leader role, let's take a look at differences, because as I mentioned, what got you to being an effective and influential product manager won't necessarily get you to be an effective and influential leader. So as you can see from this visual, individual contributor, it's really all about maximizing your own output, your own outcomes, and performance. You're creating better outcomes for customers, but really on that individual contributor level. While for a leader, it means that you have to check out your ego at the door. You have to perhaps give the most important and meaningful projects to your team members so that you can maximize your team's outcomes, and performance. There are also obvious differences between what you own as a PM versus as a leader. If you, let's say, senior product manager and you're ready to start making a transition, understanding that as a senior PM, your scope of ownership is really about one problem area. You might define and own success metrics for your problem area. You might have ownership of some details of strategy and full ownership of execution for that problem area. You also develop a really good depth of work, right? So all you see is your problem area, and that's what makes you really good at being a product manager. You also learn how to lead and influence engineers and designers, and you follow some processes. You also can recommend, maybe propose other best practices that you've tried within your immediate team to other product managers. But for the most part, you're really just following them, those frameworks, those systems and processes. But if we flip it to a leader role, as you can see, there is much more about team. We really talk about your breadth of work, really talking about owning a group of problems holistically across different problems areas. And instead of following the processes, you're the one who is burning the silos. You are creating new bridges. You're setting up those processes, frameworks, and systems so that all of your teams can work cohesively, so that you really create better outcomes for your customers as your team is running smooth. This is a great visual also from Farid and Casey at Refarch, which is, I think, a great summary that captures scope and ownership of every level. I recommend to every product manager to dive and really understand. So if I'm a senior product manager, this is what I own, but this is what it means for me to get to the group product manager. And let's quickly take a look at the examples, because I think they will really highlight the difference, because sometimes, yes, the difference might be too subtle. Understanding and driving strategy at your problem area, it is different than driving strategy for the group of problems, but of course there are similarities. So while as a GPM, you'd be overseeing the entire monetization strategy, let's say, and it would include free to paid conversions, referrals, etc. As a senior PM at Slack, you would own a conversion from freemium, let's say, to paid subscribers. So this is a pretty clear defined problem, while as a group product manager or product lead, you're looking at the problem area more holistically, because you're looking at the monetization, and conversion is just one stream or one problem area. So before we move forward, let's reflect on why do you actually want to be a product and people leader? The truth is, not all of us have to be, right? We define our own success. For someone, it means really just pursuing the individual contributor track because we enjoy building things, because this is what brings us energy. This is where we find ourselves in a zone. We really looking for impact, for the meaning, and we are pretty content in where we are. While for others, looking at our own calling to pursue that people leadership track, maybe we're looking at empowering others and really helping our team members to grow and overcome their challenges. Maybe this is what brings us that energy and really let the ability to lift someone else up and see them grow. And see them grow is our zone of genius. So the good way to reflect and understand is, if all you need is really just exposure to more strategic conversations, if you feel like you're doing just too much of an execution, you are too much in a tactical field, Well, the thing is, both tracks can really satisfy this goal. So you really have to plan accordingly. If empowering others, seeing others grow, really dealing with a lot of interpersonal challenges, interpersonal relationship is not your thing, and maybe that's okay to stay on the IC track, because there is a principal product manager, there is a staff product manager, and all of them are really strategic players. They all run in a parallel to group product managers, but they really just stand within the IC track. The only difference is that they might not just manage people, they might not manage multiple problem areas, but in the same time, they can still enjoy the depth and get a glimpse of breadth when there is time, when they want to. And if there, obviously, if there are opportunities that the company creates. So I would encourage you to, if you have time, pick up your journal whenever you have 10, 15 minutes, and try to understand first, why do you want to pursue this path? What's there for you? What's there for others? And then the second question, the second prompt I would recommend really looking at is, what do you need to make it happen? What are the next steps you can take to get yourself closer to that goal? Just writing the answers down and understanding the why, and then really identifying what's the next first step might help you to paint a much clearer journey for you from where you are today to where you want to be. So now that we've covered a typical product manager career tracks and all the differences, how do we actually plan the transition? Well, first of all, make sure you understand there is a general industry ladder, right? Something that we looked at, levels, FYI. There are different tracks, and there are also different levels and tracks within your own company, within your organization. Every company is different. As we saw earlier from my slide, what for LinkedIn, a group product manager, a director is for Salesforce. So really, for you, it means doing your homework, understanding where you are today and how far are you from your goal. The next one is really assessing your situation. Right? We're gonna really look around, objectively, try to understand, do you see opportunities for yourself to move where you want to be? And if you don't, can you create any? Have an objective look at the circumstances. The thing is, a smaller early stage startups will present with a set of opportunities completely different from a big established organization. And you might come to conclusion that, hey, there are no opportunities currently for me here. And this is okay. This is okay to recognize this. In fact, this realization alone is a very important step for you to start thinking more proactively and take your career in your own hands. If a leader role is your goal and you're ready now, perhaps this could be a sign to start looking elsewhere. But before making any assumptions, you would also want to make sure that what you believe is true. So schedule a conversation, a career conversation with your manager. Put it on the agenda. Equipped with information, your career vision and goals and assumptions, have a discussion. And sometimes it requires us managing up if our direct managers are not bringing up this topic. Make sure to discuss your career at least once a month. You want to create a set of goals, especially if there are opportunities within your current organization, and you want to make sure that both you and your manager are tracking the progress. We are not bootstrapped, and I personally do not buy into this theory alone, because we rarely can make any significant progress. Are there any role models of someone who's been in your shoes you can reach out to outside of your organization or maybe inside? With a variety of PM communities out there, it's not really challenging as it used to be before to find a mentor, to find someone who walked in your shoes several years ago, maybe even a couple of years ago. And perhaps maybe it even means getting a coach if you are really ready to put in some work. Whatever you can do to find support along your journey, I highly encourage you doing that. And one of the traps of not being able to get through the canyon is really a lack of direct people management experience, right? Product leader is also a people leader. Hence, this becomes a chicken and egg problem. You cannot transition because you have no direct people manager experience, and you cannot really gain the skills in your current role because you don't manage, you lead by influence. Putting your creative PM hat here, let's think out of the box. How might you find unofficial ways to gain some people leadership experience? Is there anyone in your network, in the communities, in the PM communities, that you can help lift them up? Maybe someone a little bit more junior. Maybe you walked in their shoes just last year, and now you're ready to help them, to elevate them. There are several opportunities, and I would mention just a couple. There is Techstar Mentors, Built by Girls, Product School, Mind the Product, Women in Product. There are so many different communities where more junior or aspiring PMs are looking to learn just from you. So this is also all in your hands. And after you've done all of this is a great time to really equip yourself with resources. Again, there are so many books, workshops, podcasts, trainings out there. And I'm mentioning just a few, but just because you're not gaining a direct leadership experience right now, it doesn't mean that you don't have to prepare yourself today for tomorrow. Check out a few books, and I'm mentioning a couple right here: Making of a Manager, A Dare to Lead, Radical Candor, The Coaching Habit, Boyd, the fighter pilot who changed the art war, which might seem like a very odd addition to the leadership books, but I would highly recommend it. Also check out some of the podcasts: Tools of Titans by Tim Ferriss, Masters in Business, Masters of Scale, and etc., etc. There is so many resources out there, and you are not alone. Many people have been in your shoes. A lot of them wrote their experience. They're here to help. And then the last but not the least is I would highly encourage you to create your own leader profile. And the way I look at this profile is really all about looking around for qualities in other leaders that really inspire you. Maybe your direct manager, maybe someone above is someone you're looking up to. Ask yourself why. What qualities, what leadership qualities do they have that you find really attractive, you find powerful, you find something that you would want to have more experience in? Ask the next question: what are the examples of this behavior? Write them down. Qualities without behaviors become pretty difficult to connect later on. So while you're writing your leader's profile, it is really important to keep this picture of yourself, of your future self, more holistic. And then think about, how do they apply to you? What's the delta today between what you have versus what you want to have? So think about leader's profile is all about your future self, your future leader self. And make sure to type it, write it down somewhere so that you can use it as a reference as you start walking on your journey to transition or as you are transitioning. So now, equipped with understanding of pretty typical PM career track and ladder, understanding the differences between IC and people in product leader role, and feeling empowered with all the resources and the ways that you can make that transition more intentional. It's really all in your hands, your career and your transition. So be the hero that you meant to be. Your journey to be continued. And just because you're reached over the canyon, you're now ready, or you are a people or product leader, it doesn't mean that the journey is over. Thank you.